Hello, strong, feisty women. First, I wanted to take a second to thank all the women who came up to me while I was in Kona producing live podcasts and other content with the Feisty Media team for the Ironman World Championship race. I love meeting audience members, and it was so exciting to watch so many of you put it all out there on the Ironman course. And the whole experience also just really reaffirmed that we all have so much inside of us and so many great adventures ahead of us, especially when we believe in ourselves. And speaking of great adventures and believing in yourself, I have a great show for you this week. And it is all about finding that inner confidence and belief. And in this case, it's through parkour, which, if you're aware of it at all, you probably equate with running up walls and leaping off tall buildings. But, lately I have been seeing a lot of midlife women taking up parkour. I have a couple of friends who are really into it. They go to conferences, they go every week, and I caught this story online on one of my news sites about this woman. She's 53, Penny Szentkuti, who started doing parkour, and now she's like an addict and feels stronger and more confident than ever. And I was like, all right, I need to know more about what's going on here. So I dropped Penny a line and she said she would love to talk about it. And she had a friend, Rachel Gray, with a similar story. So they both came on the show. And I really loved this one so very much. You can hear how infectious and positive they just love it so much. And you can hear how the practice has positively transformed their sense of self and how they view themselves and the world. It's super inspiring. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I will put a link to Penny's Instagram in the show notes so you can check out all the cool stuff that she talks about during our conversation. All right. Before we get to it, as always, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Feisty Menopause. Sign up for my free weekly menopause blog at feistymenopause.com. While you're there, check out our Level Up membership where you can meet with menopause training experts and other people like we have on the show. Every month we have monthly office hours with me where I rant and rave about everything that's on my mind. It's quite the good time. So check it out there at feistymenopause.com. Finally, quick thanks to our OG partner Previnex. I can't stop talking about their Joint Health Plus product, but I've also heard from an audience member who loves their multivitamin product. And she says, quote, I am impressed with this supplement. I have noticed a measurable difference in my energy levels and sleep since I started taking it just 3 weeks ago. Highly recommend. So there you have it. Another satisfied customer. Thank you, Previnex, for your ongoing support. And that's enough of me. Let's have a few words about those awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right. Well, we have Rachel and Penny, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys both about this because parkour is something we had on Julie Angel, who is was delightful. And she talked about parkour, but like a lot of other things just about movement. And I have all these friends in their 50s who are discovering this this thing that I always sort of regarded as something that nobody in their 50s would ever take up. Like I'd look at it and just think this is something that someone does in college or it's something done. So I think this is really intriguing and I'm Penny, let me start with you. Both of you, we talked earlier to get to know each other and you're so infectious and enthusiastic about this. But I want to start with Penny because I saw you and that's how I found you both in the ABC News piece about women over 50 finding freedom in adventure sports. And there's this great photo of you saying you found your strength again doing weekly parkour classes. And I'm just going to kick it off with that opening paragraph of the piece because I just thought it was so great. Um, Penny Szentkuti, 53, feels at home playing board games and reading books, but recently she stepped out of her comfort zone and taken to running, tumbling, and jumping from one-story heights. She has been doing parkour. How did you get there?
Well, I had an unexpectedly sporty child.
Oh,
So coming from a very bookish family myself, And having married someone similarly, you know, intellectual, we're quite head focused. I was really surprised to find I have both my children are very sporty and both do parkour, but my daughter is particularly a person who is in her body and is only sort of finds her happiness by moving. And that was something I'm really not familiar with. But she's dragged me along. I've helped, you know, I've supported her stuff. And then about 5 years ago, she found parkour, as did my son. And there just happened to be a gym down the road, which isn't very common because parkour gyms, like you say, it's pretty niche. um, but they both instantly loved the sport, and I loved watching them. So I never did the drop off and leave. I would always stay and watch, because watching people move around that gym in ways that you don't think humans can possibly do, like defying gravity. It's just, I found it so exciting to watch. And over the years of watching them, I started to, well, dream about it, dream I was doing it, and just start to view the world through the lens of parkour. Like I'll walk past a railing or cool looking walls and think, oh, nice jumps there, if I could do it. So it was just inspirational, I guess. And then my daughter was super supportive of me playing with her. And so were the people at the gym. You know, it's a very inclusive community. Um, and then I think the final, and you know, so we were often invited to join in at games at the end as the mums who were watching, and I'd occasionally do that. But you know, I felt out of place. You know, I was like the mum. I was too old. I was, you know, had sore knees, whatever. And then the final push was when they asked me to be involved in growing the female participation, because it's definitely a very male dominated activity. Both the adults and the kids classes are like 95% boys, or it was then. And so I suggested starting up a women's class, and idly said that if you start one, I'll do it. And so they went, yay, okay, let's do that. And so I did, thinking I'd do it for a few months and then drop it, because I don't do sport. You know, I don't do sport apparently. Um, and I've just loved it. So that's been 18 months and I'm going strong. And every Monday I do sort of get to the end of the day just before class and go, oh, you know, I'm a bit tired. I don't really, how can this old body do that thing? But then I arrive, because I have this wonderfully motivating daughter. And by the end of the class, I feel like a different person. I feel, you know, flexible, loose. I feel different in my head. You know, it's so wonderfully invigorating. So I try and hold on to that in between times. Yeah. So that's how I came to it.
I
Life
have many
changing.
I have many questions that I want to follow up in. But first I want to hear, Rachel, how did you get into it?
Oh, well, so I have also a very active child who, my son, my oldest, would be out climbing trees, you know, anything, any playground equipment. It's like, oh, I can't see my son. Look up. Where is he? 'Cause he'll be up high. And just had to embrace the fact that I was never going to be able to stop him from doing that, but I was always going to need to find a way for him to do it safely, so that you know, not stopping him but supporting him to do that. And we found parkour, the same gym that Penny and her children were going to. And I was so grateful to have people who could teach him how to fall properly, and you know, land properly and bail out when things weren't going well. And so also, like Penny, spent a long time watching. You know, I'd sit in the waiting area, which was actually inside the shipping container that children would jump off, and just sort of sit there waiting and watching and going, gosh, why wasn't this around when I was a, you know, when I was a teenager? I would have loved this. You know, I was very active. I did gymnastics, I did horse riding, I did climbing, you know, abseiling. Loved to do sort of adventure things and adrenaline things. And just, yeah, kind of spent a long time watching, you know, going, oh, this is so much fun. And then just one day went, why am I not doing this? Like, why am I not playing too? Because it is actually just like a giant playground. So yeah, just decided to give it a go. I think primarily because, you know, the women's class was running. It felt a little less intimidating to go and give it a try. I knew that Penny was doing it. There's another mum that goes, and I just sort of went, yeah, I feel like that's a really safe place to go and explore. And I, I'm fully hooked. That sort of Monday class, yeah, like Penny mentioned, you can be tired and, oh, can I really get there, and the juggle of all the things that you have to do in the day. But just that drive to parkour, knowing that you're going to that class, where the community is so welcoming, it's kind of like an extended family, and that sort of Monday fun day family of sort of just heading off to parkour. It's really exciting. So just it took a long time of watching. I was a long time watcher before I committed to getting onto that gym floor, but I'm so glad that I've started.
So you both came into it with similar motivations from different starting points, which I think is interesting, and I want to dig into it a little bit. So Penny, like you, unlike Rachel, we're not sporty, and I see all the books behind you. You describe yourself in a certain way, and now like you've discovered this. What does it look like? What did it look like for you to participate in it? Like I have not ever gone to a class, so I don't know. Like I know nothing except what I see people doing. My nephew's into it. I have a couple of girlfriends who are into it. But like if I were to go to a class, like where's the starting point? Are you all doing the same? Like does somebody come up to you and say, jump over this thing? Like what do you do?
So the structure of the class, yes, it is a structured class. So the gym we're fortunate to have in Sydney, is they run classes and then open sessions. So the open session is just when you're allowed to come in and use the gym as you will. But the classes are a structured event, and there's an instructor or two, depending on the size of the class. And they'll start with a warm-up, which I'm always obsessive about, of course, at my age. So important to warm up. The young people sometimes want to rush through that, and I'm going, no, I'm doing every joint in my body and every muscle. Then there are some skills, so they run a sequence of skills. So we've just done walls, there'll be vaults, there'll be bars. What else do we have? Jumps and strides. Floor, everyone's least favorite because it's not very exciting. and willpower week, which is always it can be anything, but it's really about challenging your mental game, I suppose. So there'll be skills, and we'll line up and take turns practicing the technique. So it's tech, and then just a series of different skills and practice. So it's very focused, and that's where you learn how to do things safely, and hone in on because when you watch the people doing it, it looks effortless and natural, but actually I was amazed as I watched over those years to hear how specifically, how planned and structured those movements were. They actually break it down, and you'll walk things through, step things out, you'll practice things at a low level before you take them to a high level. It's remarkably well. I mean, it's not as random as it looks. Rachel, can you add anything?
Yeah, look, there's definitely over the years, watching people working up to doing that big jump, even watching my child wanting to do something that isn't within his current range, and just watching him break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I know I do that myself. It's like, particularly like the days that we're doing our strides, or jumps in particular, you sort of give yourself a little marker on the floor and you practice, and you sort of you're comfortable, you can do that same jump 5 times over. And then you add a little bit of height, like it might only be a tire height, but you jump from tire to tire. And it's like, I know I've got the precision because I've been, landing on this little tiny point over and over. And just adding even just that little tire, it's like, oh, if I don't get it right, I could twist my ankle. And then, you sort of take it up to a meter, or, hip height. And suddenly there's this whole new fear factor of
Mm.
going, well, I know it's still the same distance. You know, I've even got a slightly bigger landing spot than, you know, I've been sort of precisely landing on. But suddenly now taking it up to this next level adds this whole new level of mental challenge. But you can overcome that because you know that you've got the skill, you know that you can do it. I've done it, you know, I've done it 10 times over now on a tiny height. And I've just got to try doing it. And it's really hard. There's this sort of moment where you go, I can't do it. And then you're like, I have to do it. I can do it. I know I can do it. And you sort of find that inner moment of doing it. And that level is really different for people. That's the beauty of being in a really mixed age group class that we're in. You know, we've got teenage girls. My daughter, who's 10, sometimes comes along. You know, we've got you know, me in my 40s, Penny in her 50s, you know, Lisa's in her 50s. There's sort of everybody in between, all different levels. Some people doing it for the first or second time. You know, some people have been doing it for years. And you can just sort of, everybody learns the start off skills and then quite quickly will go and find their own level with that. So, you know, sometimes you've got people, you know, worrying about bumping their head on the roof because they're doing their jumps up there. You know, people kind of looking for, yeah, I'm just going to go from one mat to the next, but everybody can practice that skill comfortably, you know, and then are encouraged to, you know, challenge themselves at that next level. So yeah, there's a real breakdown, you know, of the skill from what you might see, say, on a YouTube video or on an Instagram reel, you know, that looks amazing, and you're like, how do people defy that gravity? To watch it sort of being prepared in the gym that way, you really sort of can go, okay, there's so much work that's gone into just being able to achieve that brief, you know, 5 seconds of filming. Might have taken weeks of courage.
I totally get that. Can you give me, Rachel, while you broke that down so beautifully, like specifically for you, is there a move or something that stands out that you didn't like, I don't know if I can do that you were able to do?
Oh yeah, look, for me, my little nemesis has but I've got a couple, but primarily the first one that comes to mind is jumping on rails, you know, a sort of a round shiny object which you see often in your urban environment, you know, shopping centers, out, you know, along the streets. You know, you see people jumping on them, even skateboarders like riding on them, and you know, they're quite a common thing that you find out in the environment. And you know, we have those in the gym. We've got some that we can move up to different surfaces, place on different heights. We've got some that are sort of welded down from the ceiling. But finding the confidence to jump from one platform onto a rail and land it on the rail, you know, on this sort of round, and you're like, my foot could slide off. There are so many things that go through your mind. The first time I've sort of jumped from rail to another rail at sort of a meter high, just my legs were shaking, my breath was shaking, like the whole of me was shaking. But it's like, I've just done it like 15 times over on the flat, you know, I've done it at a tire's height. I know I can do this. I know my feet can land on this bar. But somehow just with that extra height, you know, it's so scary. But that reward of doing that and landing it and just the elation that you feel is, I think that's part of the addiction of kind of going back every week going, I want more of that. I want more of that feeling of success, that, you know, that I've pushed myself and I'm so pleased that I did. So yeah, the rail was a big thing for me. You know, and watching my children do it going, oh my goodness, they're going to slide off,
Right,
you know.
that's even harder.
Yeah, just landing on a rail, you know, just that innocent little bar, but it just brings up so much mental challenge to think you can land on a shiny round bar. It's yeah, that's been a big feeling of success for me to start doing that at height.
That's awesome. And Penny, same question.
Yeah, I second the bar story. Bars are terrifying, and it's very exciting to nail one of those jumps. For me, my struggles usually upper body strength. I've always had quite good solid legs, so I like the jumps and the strides, and that's all fine. But for me, trusting my grip strength and yeah, feeling like I can pull myself up. It's still something I'm working on. So we do a lot of wall runs, which is where you run at a wall, and ideally you run up that wall and then just jump up on top. You've probably seen people doing that. And so I set myself the challenge to achieve a particular wall we have in the gym, which has a slight slope. It's not completely vertical, a very slight slope, but it just makes it that bit more mentally accessible. And I've been working at that, and I think it took me just over a year to be able to actually clamber up on top. And it's not the most graceful thing, but the day that I achieved running up that, so I think it's about, I don't know, 2.5 meters, maybe 2 meters. So like, just, I mean, it's tall enough for me that I have to reach my arms up, run a couple of steps up and grab hold, and then it's that pulling up and pulling myself over. And yeah, it was a super exciting day because everyone had watched me, and I've got little video clips of the progression at the beginning when I could barely lift my, like get off the ground, to finally be able to scale that. I always joke that I'm doing this so that in the zombie apocalypse I have a slightly better chance of running away, because I want to be able to scale a fence and jump up and climb up on something. Yeah, so now I feel like I could probably get away from a zombie. It's good.
That is awesome. So fear is definitely a thing here, right? Like, you both mentioned like things look scary, and that comes up a lot in this community, because especially around like the menopause transition, when hormones start changing, a lot of women experiencing, like, I'm a mountain bike racer, and I experienced it for the first time at that level. Like, there'd be things that I would ride in my sleep that all of a sudden like were like made me nervous, and I'm wondering if either of you have experienced any of that in yourselves, or how do you deal with the fear in general if you haven't?
Oh, I think it's very real because I think as you age, you lose. I mean, it's the fear of injury, right? Because we know that older people don't recover as well. You don't bounce back. You don't bounce full stop like kids seem to bounce. So, yeah, there's always that fear of just doing your ankle or doing your knee. But one thing that I've really embraced is that I love coming away with minor bangs and scrapes and bruises, because I was finding I was getting those anyway. I'd bump into a chair or trip down a step or something and have some annoying injury. And now if I come away with a massive bruise from parkour, I go, yeah, cool. I was doing parkour. I'd much rather be injured from engaging with life and doing something super fun. So in fact, if you think about it like that, you can't be afraid of injury, to a way that's going to, or else you wouldn't not get out of bed, let's face it. So it's taking it to an extreme, doing something like parkour, but not really. But that is the fear. And I do notice, I think that's the difference between coming in cold, literally, I am very conscious of the warm-up, and minimizing, because I notice that as soon as I stop concentrating, that's when injuries happen in parkour. And I see it with everybody, observing them. When you're actually training with focus, it's very safe, because you don't push yourself beyond what you can do. And as a woman in menopause or perimenopause, because I'm still perimenopausal, and my hormones totally all over the shop, and I notice some days I just don't have the fortitude to push. I just don't. And, but fortunately, by the time you get to this wonderful age, you do know yourself pretty well. So when my young instructors are sort of going, yeah, come on, let's do this, and I say, you know what, today I'm not going to push that. I just really don't want to. And that's fine. I don't have to either. And because there have been times when I've just had a little cry, because it's scary, and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, normally I would do this. What's up today? And I just feel all a bit emotional. And I just say, look, it's one of those little hormonal moments. And what's nice about being in the women's class is I just say that stuff, and it's a reality. So I like to be frank about it.
No, that's
Some days
great. We've
Yeah.
had I've had a couple of rock climbers on, and they say very similar things, you know, that and there's high consequence for some of what they're doing, and they're just like, there's some days that you're just not sending it, and that's, you know, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you have
You
anything to add
can't
to that,
tough it
Rachel?
out.
No, you can't.
Yeah, or just was going to say, I mean, certainly because we do like a 6-week tech rotation in the classes, yeah, there are some weeks where it's like, well, I know the last time that we did this, I could do that, but you know what, this week I just can't. I feel like I'm learning it again for the first time. But that fear of injury is very real. It's like, well, if I break my ankle, or if I sprain my ankle, or if I hurt my knee, or if I fall from here, yeah, who's going to drive me home? You know, got a busy household. Like, there's it's a big deal. It's a big deal if I'm out of action in my home life. So you do sort of have that self-preservation that it's kind of there. It definitely wasn't for me when I was younger. You know, I definitely spent, you know, I was sort of first name terms at accident and emergency with, you know, getting x-rays and things checked over from my horse riding days in particular. But yeah, as you get older, you're a bit like, hang on, there's some real consequences to, you know, being immobilized for 6 weeks in a moon boot, or, you know, it's just sort of not being able to, you know, get up and just, yeah, be that person that your family needs of you. And one thing I've noticed, I'm also sort of just at the very beginning of my perimenopausal stage. You know, I've noticed a lot of women around me are talking about ADHD, not being able to concentrate, sort of half finishing things, all this kind of like multitasking that happens. And I know for me, I've sort of questioned, gosh, have I got through my life sort of not really realizing I have ADHD? But I've started to look into that myself. It's, you know, the drop in estrogen creates really similar you know, sort of feelings. And so for me to be really focused during my parkour classes, like Penny said, you know, the moment that you lose concentration is when errors come in. So it's really fulfilling for me to have that time of going, okay, really concentrate on what I'm doing, and then have a little bit of downtime while somebody else takes a go, but then, you know, sort of bring back that full sort of being present, to you know, whatever task it is that I'm trying. I've noticed for me, yeah, I definitely can be away with the fairies quite easily. So just keeping that in my mind, going, okay, I really, you know, if I'm not fully present, if I'm not fully, you know, what's across what's happening here, it's hard to sort of say to yourself, you know what, don't do it today, let it go today, come back and revisit another day. But part of that is also acceptance of, you know, being vulnerable, or not wanting to put yourself in that vulnerable space, particularly with all the other responsibilities that you know, you have at this stage in your sort of family life. It's, yeah.
Go ahead, Penny. You look like you want to say something.
I was about to just add something about falling. And this is something I'd like to ask you two, as people who have been more active, because I know, you know, I teach children, so I know they fall, right? Kids run around and fall over all the time. And as adults, that's something that becomes less and less common and quite scary, you know, just, and embarrassing, like when you fall over. You know, falling over is not a good thing. Coming to parkour has made me really, one thing I wanted to practice a lot at the beginning was just flopping over, falling. So we'd always get the mat out, and I'd say I'm just so uncomfortable just like falling. So I just practice flopping and falling and not tensing. Like, so there's a whole thing about learning to roll, because obviously there's a lot of drops in parkour, and you have to learn to drop and absorb the impact, and then if it's too much, you go into a roll, and all of that. And that's always actually very challenging for me because of that joints thing. It always feels very risky on the joints, but learning to do that properly, and yeah, the comfort of just feeling like you know how to fall. It's a really important skill, and one that I find ongoingly challenging. Yeah.
So is there a question in there about, like, because I've hit the ground many times.
Well, I was going to ask you, as because I know you're a cyclist, you're a biker, and you would, like, you have hit the ground many times, and I mean, so I'm just saying, I guess you've had more practice at that, and it's less scary for you
Well,
because
you never
you
love
get up
it.
again mostly.
Yeah, you never, I mean, it's funny because you try not obviously to hit the ground, but sometimes there's things out of your control. And I literally just, I was 2 weeks out from the current, I did a Ironman 70.3 a couple weeks ago, and I was 2 weeks out and I was doing a giant ride with some friends. It was like 130 miles, and 90 miles into it, there was a little mishap in our small little group, and the guy in front of me swerved and hit my front wheel, and we were going pretty fast, maybe close to
Oof.
30, and I just went down at speed on, this gravel path, and I saw it, like, time slows down. I'm just like, maybe I can save it, and then I'm on the ground. But, like, there's something oddly comforting about crashing and being okay. Like, I crashed. I knew immediately that I wasn't hurt. Like, and you also know immediately when you're hurt. I knew
Mm,
immediately, like, I've lost some skin, but, like, structurally I'm fine. So I
yeah,
just got up and I was just like, rinsed myself off, and we finished the ride. And it's there's something very empowering about that. I'm not recommending that people go throw themselves on the ground, but also I do think that when you are in these sports, you do learn sort of how to um that time slowing down, and sort of like you almost are adjusting. Like, I know people who race in packs, and they are actively looking for places safely to crash when everything is going haywire. And it doesn't always work, but
mm,
yeah, it's definitely a skill. And I like knowing that I'm not fragile. Like I
yeah.
Yeah.
wouldn't like that. I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know how, I mean, you did gymnastics, you fall. I mean, you've got to fall all the time growing up and doing
Yeah.
gymnastics and stuff.
And horse riding, falling from
Oh,
a height, that's an
absolutely. Oh,
extra
yes.
big skill.
Bike
I
doesn't
mean,
have
a
a
lot
brain of
of
its
sand.
own.
A lot of dirt, a lot of sand over the years, just, and yeah, that feeling of, right, that's fine. Dust yourself off, get back on. That's it. You can't let that, become part of your mindset. You just get up and get back on and have another go.
Mm,
And I think parkour's very much like that. I didn't get it right. Okay, what didn't I get right? Let me have a little think about this. How can I approach that differently? I'm gonna have another go, or I was so close, like next time I've just got to, reach a bit higher, or just bend a little bit more before I take off, or just, yeah, pushing yourself that little bit more the next time. It's a really good learning opportunity to reflect on, well, okay, that didn't quite go how how it was planned. How can I approach it differently? But the
absolutely.
falling, yeah, it's a scary part, but knowing that you have practiced falling, like quite often if we're doing a very difficult skill, we will practice that falling first. Penny and I have spent many an evening like running at a wall just to absorb the impact and bounce off, and sort of land on our back, or roll away, for those moments when you don't
Mm,
quite get it right,
mm.
because that then in turn gives you the confidence to fully commit to that jump, knowing that if it's not going right, you can bail out. Like, learning to bail is it's a really important part of parkour, which I think is the benefit of learning in the gym, that you can have a big comfortable crash mat.
That's
I
right.
know I know a lot of the outdoor guys that are training, they'll find like big mulch piles in parks, or they'll even move a mulch pile next to something that they want to practice on, so that, sort of nature's ground covering to absorb any mistakes while you're, still practicing.
Mm.
I think the falling is definitely a part of the parkour. And that, yeah, like you say, it's embarrassing as an adult to fall over. It's like,
Mm.
because part of growing up is that you're mastering, your movement, and you know falling, I guess, is the mistake. So you don't want to be making those mistakes, but it's important that you do, because you learn so much from them.
Absolutely. And Rachel, that leads me to that wonderful transition that you're making from moving from inside the gym to outdoors, which is where parkour naturally, should be occurring. And you've been making some great strides with your outdoor parkour, because it is a lot scarier just because it's less. Well, I guess we know the gym and we know the shapes and we know the heights that we're practicing on. But yeah, suddenly you look around outdoors and think, oh, yeah, this is all just wild, like doing it in the wild. Very exciting.
It is. Yeah, I find myself sitting at the traffic lights, you know, in the car going, oh, look at that apartment block. They've got really great walls out the front there. And oh, look, that could be a water object. And you sort of start seeing the world around you, like through this sort of different kind of playground lens, you know, like your whole life, you look around and you sort of start seeing things a little bit differently. And I'm often out, you know, with my son who, you know, is also sort of transitioned this year to being much more outdoor rather than indoor, and there's a part of me that kind of wants to you keep that connection with him, to keep up with what he's doing. And I mean, he's certainly levels ahead of me, you know. I'll jump from one thing to another and hold on and climb up, and he's somersaulting, you know, over the top of them. So he's at a very different level. But to be able to go out and even just to run alongside him and film him when he's doing requires a certain level of, you know, dexterity just to keep up on that front. But it's really exciting to find all the outdoor spaces, and we quite often go bushwalking, which is again really different even than from being like in a car park where, you know, everything's sort of cement and concrete and everything's sort of got straight edges and, you know, that sort of thing. But then jumping from, you know, so tree to tree, or, you know, like landing on a branch, but the branch moves and then there's that extra level of sort of balance that's needed. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to add lots of extra height, or it just sort of transitioning to outside, you know, without the comfortable landing spot. The fact that some of your, you know, objects might move, and not be in the same place, and there's certainly no calculated distances, you know, between them. It's quite random. It's a new and exciting level. Even like rock faces, you know, that are not smooth and uneven, and yeah, there's some really exciting exploration outdoors, which is still quite new. It's only been this year that I've sort of been trying that, but yeah, it's a very exciting step to be taking.
It sounds too like this is something that absolutely must transcend parkour. Like everything I'm hearing from you guys is like um a level of mindset and confidence and also physicality that must transcend what, like, just what you're doing in class or in the outdoors when you're participating in the sport. Like, how has it affected you outside of quote unquote parkour?
Yeah, I think it's a really big confidence booster. I mean, there's a sense of taking up space in the world that, you know, I'm a pretty quiet person, and I feel, yeah, I feel really confident. I feel it's partly because I've been embraced by a wonderful community, but just, yeah, finding my inner strength, and that's a emotional, psychological, and physical package. So it's been very liberating in that way, and that comes back to the taking it outdoors thing. Um, Doing it outdoors as a middle-aged person can feel quite challenging. I definitely like doing it with a buddy. It's much more fun, and you feel like if there's two of you playing outdoors, who cares, you know, whatever. But there is breaking through those barriers of societal expectation that, you know, women of a certain age, I've got grey hair, you know, should be quiet and not very visible. And I'm really enjoying breaking those expectations. That's actually one of my favorite things. I have a t-shirt from the gym that says "Define Beast," and I go, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm a beast. And it's just like so sort of hilarious and wonderful that I really love to confound the expectations of anyone who might see me. Yeah. So it's definitely larger than just moving my body and doing parkour.
Yeah, there's so many levels which parkour does sort of transcend outside of, you know, a parkour session. Just, you know, those any challenges that you see, you sort of feel confident to, you know, stand up and have a good look and start to break that down, whether, you know, that's a physical challenge or a mental challenge. You know, I know for me doing parkour, there were things at the beginning I really couldn't do because I just wasn't strong enough.
Mm.
It really inspired me to go, well, you know what, actually, there's a strength session that happens at the gym. You know, it's run by a 30-something, very muscly, you know, really strong person. And there's no way that I wanted to feel that vulnerable, you know, expose myself and my, you know, sort of middle-aged, not particularly athletic body to these young guys who were doing, you know, 120 pull-ups, and, you know, and it's like, oh, I'm not even sure I can do one pull-up, but, you know, I want to learn, I want to give it a go. And it's quite sort of, I guess, you know, you feel this humility of like not being able to do those things but wanting to do that, and it's like, have I left it too late? Like, is it, should I be doing this stuff? Like, is it a bit tragic that I'm trying to keep up with my teenage son? And then it's like, but if not now, then when? Like, if I don't, you know, because in 5 years time I'm only going to be older, I'm only going to be grayer, I'm only going to be less able. You know, I have to just bite that bullet and go, you know what, I'm not going to be very good at this, but I want to get better. And the people, certainly in the parkour community that I've come across, are so encouraging, and embracing of, yeah, start at any level, you know, we can help you sort of get there. So in addition to the parkour, I've been doing a strength class as well, you know, just really sort of challenging my physicality, from doing, you know, I've always sort of managed to stay fairly fit doing things that I enjoy. You know, sort of, I've never really been a go to the gym and work out kind of person, because I sort of accidentally get fit doing the things that I like doing, and that's always sort of suited me better. Um, but going and learning how to, you know, do small weights safely, you know, just makes you feel so powerful to, even though it's not a heavy weight, but to be able to sort of go, well, you know, I've done 3 sets of that, and, you know, just, yeah, being able to feel like you're achieving something physically really helps you mentally and emotionally, going, yeah, you know what, I might not have been very strong at the start, but look at where I've come. Like, that's a really defined time scale of me being able to sort of go from not being able to do that to now being able to do it, and only improving from that. It's been, yeah, really, really beneficial for me in my confidence, and just, yeah, that ability to sort of take things on, knowing that I can break them down and
Mm.
start building. Yeah.
I love that. I love all that. Um, so what would you say to women in the audience who are hearing this and super stoked but don't know how to start? Like, how do they start?
Oh, well, that
Either of you.
may be more or less tricky depending where you are, because it is. But look, if you Google parkour and your area, you will find some things. So I know in the US there's an active US parkour, you know, group from Europe. So I think they are there. You just need to
Yeah.
tap into the communities. There won't always be a specific focused parkour gym, but a lot of you know, regular gyms or gymnastics places and PCYCs and places like that run classes. I think for me, yeah, having a buddy helps a lot. Like with most activities, you know, someone who gets you there, even if your motivation's low, that helps a lot. If you can find someone who's a little curious, the same as you, and I would suggest finding a way to learn it instead of just going out and trying it just for safety. You do want to learn some of those basic ways of protecting yourself. I actually definitely don't like going out and practicing outside without a buddy, because I always have that, oh, what if I do something? Um, so, yeah. So I think Google's probably your friend. Rachel, have you looked into that more?
Yeah, look, I mean, here in Australia, there's a lot of places that offer, parkour classes. A lot of the gymnastics centres also offer like an adult gymnastics class as well. So just sort of getting that confidence in movement over, obstacles is, I think it's great if you can find someone to teach you.
Mm.
We went on a family holiday to the UK last year, which is where I grew up. There's definitely places there because we looked into it while we were there for a month, so my son was, having major withdrawals from not doing his parkour classes. There's a lot of outdoor parkour park areas in the UK, but also a lot of gyms that do offer parkour. There is quite an active community there as well.
Mm.
So I think it's Parkour UK. If you sort of Google that, lots of gyms and offerings will come up.
Mm.
The same here. There's a lot of people, they call them ninja classes, like, so you have to
Mm.
be a bit
Yes.
vague about the terminology for what you're searching for. But yeah, sort of any kind of outdoor gymnastics or urban gymnastics, or parkour, ninja warrior, those sort
Yeah.
of terminologies, people can find
Mm.
that. But I mean, you can just start like at the local park, your playground, when you're there, with the kids, balancing on the logs, practicing. Kids are on the monkey bars, been dangling upside down from monkey bars, and it is a little bit of a, okay, I'm just going to be the mum that's doing all the stuff with the kids, not sitting around, kind of chatting with the other mums or sipping on a coffee, or having some scrolling time on your phone, or I'm going to be the active mum. And it's a little bit, it does take a little bit of you know kind of, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I don't really care what people think. If they think it's weird that I'm dangling upside down from the climbing frame, or maybe they should give it a try.
You could be
Exactly.
inspiring somebody. You don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've found people are very inspired. I have to say, a lot of women say to me, it's amazing. I wish I could do something like that. And I say, well, you can.
Yeah.
It's like, I am so not a special fit, parkour person. I'm just a regular 53-year-old. And it took a while for me to come to it, but I'm hoping with every little post and whatever I do on my Instagram that the seed is planted for a few people, just open their mind that it is a possibility for women of any age to give it a go, because I get great feedback about it. Yeah. So that's nice.
That is awesome. And I think that is a great place to wrap this up, because it's been very inspirational. And I think there's just so many benefits that never occurred to me, until I started talking to the likes of you. So I appreciate your time.
Oh,
Ah,
thank you so much.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Celine.
Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with autoimmune and precision medicine specialist, Dr. Erin Donaldson. We talk all about fasting for perimenopausal and menopausal women. You won't want to miss this one. So come on back next week. And until then, as always, stay feisty.